So I'm now pleased to introduce the papers. So we have, okay, Janet, we have 4 papers in this session, in this panel. Okay, Janet, can we show the list of the papers to be presented? All right, so the first paper is to be presented by Professor Muhammad Daud Ismail from the University of Kebangsaan, Malaysia. So to present the moderating effect of governance on the relationship between motivation and performance. So an investigation in the case of a university and industry collaboration. So the second paper will examine the volunteering behavior of the Filipino youth using the extended theory of planned behavior. So we have here with us one of the presenters, Professor Joy Rabo. Okay. Paper number 3 deals with the job satisfaction and administrative capability among employees in higher education institutions in Sulu. So to be presented by all of the research team from the Sulu State College. The last paper tackles the effect of corporate entrepreneurship on employee innovative characteristic development in selected companies in the Philippines. So we have here with us Professor Jaime Ignacio from the College of Business of Dlsu University. So now we're going to proceed with playing the recorded presentation. So at the end, so I do encourage you to take note of your suggestions, insights, and we'd be happy to discuss them at the end of our sessions. Okay, so thank you very much, and I hope that we're going to have an insightful afternoon in this session. All right, thank you very much. Thank you everyone for your attention and bearing with us, though we have technical difficulties at times. So we're now going to proceed with the Q&A portion of our panel. So the floor is now open for your questions, insights, and if you'd like to share something about your impressions about the research papers presented during this session. So the floor is now open. Feel free to type in your questions in the chat box, or you can simply unmute yourself and begin sharing your questions and insights. Okay. So do you have any volunteers? We can have a show of hands if you want to speak. Right? Anyone? So we have a really interesting set of papers in our session. We have a lot of research context. So I think there's a great room for us to learn from each other's work. Anyone would like to share questions? Volunteers? Do we have anyone who would like to share some insights? So I think I should get started with with my impressions of the paper. So I think there's a great deal of most of the papers which were submitted to the panel. I'm not in any way involved with the screening of the papers or with the selection of the papers into the panels. So I think most of the papers that were presented in the conference are still on their work, they're still in progress, in a way that we're looking forward to finishing the paper so that everyone can submit them into relevant journals. So the first paper I think is very interesting. So do you have Professor Professor Ismail on our session at the moment? Yeah.
Yes, I'm here.
Hi. So good afternoon, Professor Ismail. So I happen to have read your paper. It's very interesting. So when I was looking at the references, it reminded me of a paper that you cited on research policy. They were my professors when I was doing my PhD. So I think your paper is really interesting, and the contribution and the research question is very clear. And I think there's a great deal of contribution in the literature of university-industry collaboration, especially in the ASEAN context, because admittedly, we don't have so much literature on that. It seems that in the developing country context or emerging economic context, the literature on UIC is still on a nascent stage. So I think it's very interesting doing internal surveys so that we get to know how UIC gets to transpire in these university settings. I do have one question. So you made use of hierarchical linear modeling, if I'm not mistaken.
Yes, correct.
Yes, and you have about 95 samples. So I was wondering what was your clustering variable in your in your research. So I think that's the only methodological question that I have at the moment, but I think the paper in general is very interesting.
Okay, the variable, basically there are three groups of variables. One is the motivation, second one is the collaboration output, and the third one is the, what you call it, the moderating variable. By the way, for your information, you are correct that a lot of papers about these topics appear or published in research policy. In fact, there's a few of my references or citations coming from that journal. For your information as well, this paper has been submitted to a journal. It is in process of reviewing. I received a comment from reviewers, and I'm in the process of doing a correction for this paper and submit it for the, hopefully is managed to publish in that journal. As mentioned again, I can say that the samples or the respondents is quite low, less than 100. Nevertheless, it still can be used to, to test the hypothesis. So basically, what I have is three major, mainly the three groups of what you call it, the constructs. You know? One is the motivation, but motivation is multi-dimensional constructs. So in my study, there are 4 dimensions of motivation, and the moderating factors is governance and consists of 2 dimensions, as mentioned in my presentation.
So thank you. Okay, sorry. Another follow-up question. So, what were the I think in the interest of the other researchers who might be interested doing a similar work on university-industry collaboration? What do you think would be what are some of the practical or practical challenges of doing a similar work like what you did? So I think a lot of them would. There's a great push of the government in the Philippines to do such similar work. So what do you think would be the a good set of recommendations which are some of our participants may consider following?
Yes, I think I highly encourage if anybody wants to do the similar works, especially in the context of developing country in ASEAN. I go back to your comment earlier. You are correct that not many studies have been done, especially among ASEAN countries, also in emerging market. In the context of emerging market, more of studies from China. So of course, you know, if you read a lot of journal today, a lot of study in whatever area, especially in business, most of the studies are China centric. Less study actually have been done in ASEAN context. And for a matter of facts, collaboration between industry and university is a policy matter, especially at the levels of the governments, at the Ministry of Education. This is to, as mentioned in my presentation as well, because this is very critical. Firms, you know, they need resources, especially nowadays during the pandemics. We use technology, so we need innovations, and companies also need resources. And during the globalization, where the competitions is very, you know, very high, and the environment is very complex. So firms, they cannot do it by themselves. So they need, you know, networking, especially from the university. So since university nowadays focusing on research and development, so I think the university has a lot to offer to the industry, so that they can help the industry to, you know, to move on in terms of global competitiveness. So I encourage for those who want to do a study, and I think it's also interesting if we can do like a comparative study among ASEAN countries. So this is something that we can explore.
Mhm. I think that that's one of the best ways to go, especially for looking at some of the there's a great, yeah, like you're also you're correct on saying that there's a great deal of empirical work done in the context of ASEAN countries. So there's a great deal of impact to policy if we're going to consider some work which is comparative in nature, because at the end of the day, a lot of ASEAN countries would be replicating models of industry university collaboration. I think that's how universities will create far better impact to their society. So I think that's a very good point. So thank you. That's a very insightful set of ideas from Professor Ismail. So
Thank
we
you.
do have okay. So yeah, thank you. We do have other questions. So okay, let me just open the chat box. So there's a question here. So a question raised for paper number 4 on the paper on corporate entrepreneurship. So for paper number 4, may I know if there were job satisfaction dimensions which that were included in the study. So apologies if this was already presented by the research team. And all right, there's another question. Sorry, I forgot, Professor Ismail. There's another question. Do you think in your paper the 9.5% response rate affected the results, or do you plan to continue adding more samples or getting back to them? I think it's a common set of response from the reviewers that they ask you to go back. So yeah, it happens a
Well,
lot. So
as mentioned earlier, that this paper is in the consideration of publication. So I submitted already to a journal, and that journal is indexed by Scopus and WOS, quite good journals as well. So none of the examiners question the response. Of course, response rate is low. This is something which is normal if we look at the what you call it, emerging market or developing country context. But as far as the research is concerned, because it is very rare, in fact the reviewer if told me that writes in the comments that this is a very insightful and also something which is rare, especially when we talk about the governance of the relationship between the university and industry. Yes, it is a concern even for me, when I have only 95, or less than 10% response rate, but so far is not a problem.
Okay, so thank you very much. May I know which journal was this?
Let me
You
check.
don't need to answer. I forgot that it's confidential, these things during the peer review process.
Yes,
Yeah,
correct.
but
Yeah.
anyway, so yeah, I forgot. Shouldn't have asked, but yeah, there's a lot. I also reviewed in the past for research policy, and there's really a lot of great deal of peer review work in that journal in particular. Is quite, yeah, I was referred to by one of the professors which were cited. So thank you very much. So okay, so in reference to paper number 4, the job satisfaction dimension. So thank you, Professor Ismail. Yeah, so Jaime, were you able to hear my question? So you can share your insights.
So
Okay.
can you hear me, sir?
Yeah, I can hear you perfectly.
Can you hear me, sir?
Yep.
Okay. Oh, well, technically, job satisfaction wasn't included because the primary model used was from whole factors of corporate entrepreneurship, which only cited 5 factors. And at the same time, this is just to measure how it changes employees' innovative characteristics and entrepreneurial characteristics. So it was limited to the 5 factors cited by Holt as factors of corporate entrepreneurship. So it wasn't included there.
Okay. So thank you. Okay. All right. So there's a list of questions here. So I'm trying to. They're sending it to me directly, not on the board. So please, it's okay to. All right. So thank you. Does that answer the question? So it wasn't included in the model because I think it's a different part of the study, if I'm not mistaken, in paper number 4. So I think there's another question. This time, okay, I think we have someone who's really interested in motivation. So this time for paper number 3. So this is the paper from our colleagues from the Sulu State College. So there's a question on about motivation. How did you measure the motivation of the I think this is a question on job satisfaction and administrative capability. So I think one member of the audience is asking about how did you measure and capture job satisfaction and administrative capability. So okay, so please go ahead. Anyone from the research team from Sulu State College?
Yes, sir. Good afternoon.
Yeah,
Okay, sir.
go ahead.
The motivating factor that we measure on our study, it is a positive motivation, appreciation, regular tasks for their work. Some of the schools, as we survey, so we came up with a positive motivation. And the other one is negative for the employees who fail to work properly or redundant, reluctant to change. Thank you, sir.
I was sorry. My connection is a bit choppy. I often get disconnected during my classes as well. So I also have a couple of insights. I think this is gleaming from the looking at the comments as well from the audience. No, I'm interested about the motivation of doing the research work. So do you aim to draw policy insights based on your research project, and what are your next plans about the research project? Because I think at the present stage, it's still on its development stage. So may I know if from the researchers, what do you plan or what do you consider to be the next steps in your research project?
Okay, sir. The most interesting on the part of our study, we have to we have to extend our scope rather from Sulu. If possible, we will conduct study on Basilan, Sulu, and Tawi-Tawi for correlation, sir. Not only particularly in Sulu, but we want to conduct to measure the job satisfaction among employees in Basilan, Sulu, and Tawi-Tawi, sir, if God will. And of course, through the support of our president.
Okay, I'm sorry, my connection is a bit slow. My video is faster than my audio, or probably it's the other way around. So thank you. So I think there's a great deal of potential to scale up the project. And so these are there's another okay comment. There's a series of comments which are not put into on the board. So this is paper number. Okay, this is for paper number 4. So we have a comment from Mr. Pangindian. So I thought it was paper number 3. So would you like to share? So this is a question or is this a commentary? Or all right, so you can
There's a
if you want to
question, sir.
proceed. It's a question. Sorry, I didn't. Okay. So it's a question. So okay, I think Jaime, can you see the comment?
Wait for a while.
I think
So,
the connection is a
what are
bit
the
slow.
identifiable
So, okay.
weakness of the research conducted?
I forgot to include
Identifiable
the question
weakness
mark.
on the law presence. Well, sir, technically, from the number of participants from the 6 industries, it was noted that it is in a way present. Now, the practice of corporate entrepreneurship is present among several industries. So the only thing is that for it was found out that only on work discretion and time availability, where those are the two things that directly affects or increases innovative and entrepreneurial behavior. So thus, like what I recommended, okay, we recommended that a further study on how to better have a good effect for the rest, such as management support, for rewards and organizational boundaries could be made, so that as in entirely all of these possible factors would go along to uh, perfectly increase the innovative and entrepreneurial behavior. So that would be, I think, and of course, well, secondly is of course due to the limited, limitations of the conditions we have, that we only were able to survey, 16 companies and only via uh, Google form, where maybe it could have been expanded to really check, okay, if the same would be true to other industries.
Thank you, Mr. Ignacio.
Thank you.
Okay, so thank you, Roderick. Um, do we have other insights or comments? Right. So do we have questions to our? We haven't heard anything yet from the volunteering paper. Okay, so this is a very interesting paper. I attended a previous presentation on this one, looking at the volunteer intentions of DLSU students. So I think this is a very interesting one because there's a great deal of literature that's emerging on the civic engagement among the youth, especially on the university social impact, and that's one way by which that's one way by which the universities can create further impact. No? So it's through civic engagement, and the behavioral foundations of volunteering is, I think, it's a very interesting research area. So do we have? I think it's uh, comments or insights. Okay, so while waiting for the comments now, so okay, so we have here another one. Okay, so there is, okay, paper number 3. So I can't exactly recall the, okay, so this is paper number 3 for Sulu. So I think this is a commentary from one of our participants. So one strand of the literature, I think, which would be useful for the researchers from our colleagues from Sulu, is to consider the SHRM job satisfaction constructs. So SHRM, if I'm not mistaken, are these strategic human resource management job satisfaction constructs? Is this it? You can say, you can just put in the chat box, such as career development, compensation, benefits, relationship with a society. I think this is an organization. Okay. So there's a lot of human resource or um, based on their psychometric validated pre-existing measures of pertaining to career development, compensation, benefits, relationship with management, and work environment, rather than an overall job satisfaction. Because I think that's quite true. In the literature, often when I review papers, no, I've reviewed papers for the Academy of Management, for similar journals, and a lot of the interesting insights that they are saying, that a lot of these generalizable ideas about organizational performance can be further unpacked using measures or constructs be anchored on psychology literature. So yeah, there's a great deal of constructs which you can adopt in your surveys. So okay, do we have any? I think that's one way by which you can enrich the research strategy for the next
Yes.
steps.
Okay, sir. Noted. Noted. Okay, sir. Thank you.
Okay, so I think yeah. So, okay, and all right. Okay, so a couple more comments here. All right, is this on job satisfaction? What is not in place as ways to increase job satisfaction? And Okay, I'm not sure if I understand it correctly or if this is for this particular paper. Okay, on what they think should be done.
Sir. It's correct,
Yep.
sir. Yeah, yeah.
Go ahead. Go ahead. Okay. Is that a comment
Okay.
for the
Among
paper?
yeah, yeah, yeah. So
Okay.
amongst the many ways to increase job satisfaction, what they think are not yet in place, which they think should have been done or should be done.
Okay. It's a follow-up response. So I didn't understand it quite clear on the chat box. It's a series of a string of messages. Okay, so thank you everyone. Do we have other things, other comments or insights? Okay. So again, thank you everyone. So if there are no further questions or clarifications on the research papers which are presented this on our panel, so I'm really grateful for your time, for sharing your expertise and taking time to develop your research projects. So I think everyone is grateful for sharing research ideas. So I think one of the ways by which we can enrich, or um, glean greater deal of experience on this conference is that we can use the comments which we heard from our participants to enrich uh, the uh, the contribution of our research papers. So I think there's a couple of requests here to have a group photo. All right, so there's a request for group photo, and all right, so just okay, there's a great deal of comments here, and the certificates will be sent to you via email. So please don't worry about it. I'm not the one who's going to send it. I'm just facilitating this panel. So yeah, Janet, I think is our technical assistant is will be doing the screenshot. So if you're considering including yourself in the group photo, please stay in our session for a few more seconds. All right. Oh, so sorry. So we have here the certificates of appreciation and the participation to our paper presenters, which will be sent to you via email. All right. So thank you very much. So they were already signed and they would be sent to you shortly. So we try to be as efficient as possible, considering. Yeah. Okay. So thank you, everyone. So we have those certificates. All right. So now we'll have a request for the group photo. Okay. So Janet, you'll be doing the screenshots, no? Okay, so is everyone ready?
1, 2, 3.
The others doesn't have any photo, I think, or
Ayan.
a video.
Okay, thank
Yeah.
you.
One more, please.
Okay,
One more.
so
Okay.
one more.
1, 2, 3. Okay.
Okay, okay. So thank you very much.
Thank
So
you.
I hope you enjoyed your time in our panel. So please keep in touch.
Thank you, Sir Jason from Sulu
Thank
State
you very much.
College.
Yes, sir.
So let's keep in touch. So I think I shared here my LinkedIn ID or something. Okay, so thank you very much. So we'll keep in touch. Okay.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you.